This is Japanese, consisting of the kana, the hiragana and the katakana, two Japanese writing systems. And if that isn't already enough, we also have the kanji. Basically one symbol, one meaning, and if we combine those symbols together, well, we get a new meaning, right? And because just pure letters and symbols would make this language kind of plain, we still have bunpo, grammar, to indicate meaning inside sentences. And one essential part of bunpo, or maybe one part next to bunpo, is joshi. And joshi are kind of called particles in English language. But what actually are those joshi or particles? Well, if we go by the original definition, we go to a small grammatical marker that follows nouns, verbs, and well, this definition doesn't help us that much, right? So let's look at a more clear example. Well, like I said, let's look at the particle, as we would say it. So if we look at this small Japanese text, you see the pink marked symbols are particles. You see we have some letters, like kono, the hiragana, chaneru, the katakana, and here and there we can see some kanji, like sekai or ichiban, and so on. And to kind of indicate meaning in these sentences, we can see the particles of wa, de, ni, and o. But why should you even care about those particles? Well, if you look at the posts of your favorite influencers, you will see that most of them rarely use particles. Because in slang language or in spoken language, in Japanese, we don't really use that many particles, so it just makes up a small percentage of the Japanese language. And in this case, you can say, if I know the Japanese vocabulary, I don't really need to know about the Japanese particle. I can just guess the meaning, right? But let's look at this sentence. The sentence pen de kakimasu and pen o kakimasu has a whole different meaning. And this meaning of the sentence changes just by choosing a different particle. But let's first get a step back. Well, in this video I want to show you the most important Japanese particles, the wa particle. So we will start by looking at the two most fundamental and important particles in Japanese language, the wa and the ga particle. And basically, while I explain the wa particle to you, I also want to tell you why you shouldn't say kyou wa kirei desu to your crush in Japanese, because just using this particle will turn a compliment to an insult. And after this we will look at the ga particle and go back to our definition that we had at the beginning, because I can tell you that this definition kind of misses central part in Japanese language. And by telling you how this definition is wrong, I will give you a core principle, and let me tell you, I will give you the core principle of Japanese language. Something that many Japanese students and even many Japanese teachers like myself get wrong sometimes, or kind of miss to point out about Japanese language. Trust me, it will kind of flip over your mindset of Japanese language. And if I could teach one thing in Japanese language, it would be this core principle. So let's get started. So you see the wa and the ga particle get mixed up pretty often in Japanese language, and to be honest, there are many occasions where you can just use wa and ga, and even I myself talked to many Japanese speakers, but they always told me, well, I don't know, you can use both. So in this part, let's first look at the wa particle, or which functions this particle can have. Well, the first function is wa as a topic marker. Basically, you can decide which topic you want to have for the conversation, or what you want to focus in a conversation. So for example, if you talk with your friends in Japanese, then you can say at some point, watashi wa daigakusei desu. And basically, watashi wa puts you, the person, as the topic of the sentence, so you kind of indicate to, well, let's talk about me. And in case of myself, I'm a student. But one thing to notice in Japanese language is that if you use the wa particle as a topic marker, it often is omitted in spoken language. In written text you see it more often, because there it is more important to input the topic, but I can tell you that one part where wa is not omitted is wa as a contrast mark. And now we come back to our example from before. So let's look at different contrasts that you have. Well, it could be suki or kirai, something that you like and something that you don't like. So here we have the sentence, akai ringo wa suki desu ga, midori no wa amari suki janai. Well, suki desu and suki janai basically means to like or not to like in the second case. And if we look in front of the wa, we have a red apple, and midori no wa is the green apple. And basically, you could think that, well, the topic of the first sentence is the red apple, and the topic of the second sentence is the green apple, but in this case, it is a contrast marker. So you say, if you would translate it while looking at the particle, it would mean something like, in contrast to liking the red apple, I don't like the green apple. So you use this not just for apple or for things you like or you don't like, you can also use it in contrast for today and tomorrow. And there we come back to the sentence that we had before. Well, 今日は綺麗です. You may think that in this sentence, 今日は will be the topic marker, but if you go to your crush and talk Japanese to her and you tell her 今日は綺麗です, it will be often misunderstood as 今日は as a contrast marker. So in this case, today I look good, so you mean the other days I didn't look good. And that's how the small particle turns from a compliment to an insult. And to kind of fix this one, well, if you meet your crush, you can say 今日は特に綺麗です. Tokuni means especially, so you can say, well, especially today you look great. And this changes the meaning of the sentence from, well, today you look good, the other days you didn't look good too. Well, you usually look good, but today you look pretty. And you can contrast more things, right? You can contrast yourself and other people. For example, if you're inside the group and they say, well, they want to go play some football. これからサッカーに行こうか. Then you can think in your head, for example, 私はどうすればいい? And in this case, どうすればいい means, well, what should I do? In this case, well, you don't know if you want to go to play soccer or if you want to go home. And in this case, 私は is the contrast of your opinion or what you think or what you want to do to the other people that are doing something. So you can see there are endless contrasts that you can use in Japanese language. Just be great. And now that we talked about the two most important functions, wa, let's go to ga. And I can tell you that ga has really, really, really endless functions, but let's go through them step by step. Well, the first one is the subject marker. And let's kind of create a mental image for you what I mean by the subject marker. Well, in grammatical sense, it is the subject. But if you look at this picture, for example, you are the subject. Imagine you're at a birthday party and this day is all about you. Everyone is looking at you, everyone is pointing at you. Well, it's your day, it's not about the other people. So this is how you have to imagine the ga subject particle, and everything around becomes not that important. By having this basic principle in mind, you will understand the whole different functions of ga. ベッドが一つしかありません. So here you point out with ga the subject of your sentence. ベッドが the bed here. If you look at the bed, we don't have more than one. For example, you go into a room and let's say you have 2 tables and 2 chairs and so on, but looking at the bed, we don't have more than one. So you point your finger at this one and say, well, this is not enough. Or, for example, you can have this sentence, A-san ga waraimashita. So, for example, if you're at a group and you're talking with other people and you want to point out a certain person, you can say, this person laughed. For example, your friend was just tripping and then fell on the ground and one person was laughing and they were asking like, who was laughing? And then you can say, this person was laughing. Kind of point someone out in this case. Maybe not the best way to use this particle, but I think you can understand what I mean. And in this case also, ga is not just used for pointing out a person, but also in contradiction to this, if you want to ask for who did something. So instead of saying A さんが笑いました, you can say 誰が笑いました? And in Japanese language, instead of using a question mark, you use the particle ka. So 誰が笑いましたか? And there you can ask who was the person that was laughing. And in this case, like I said you in the beginning, you want to point out something. You want to know who is the one person that did this, and everything around this becomes unimportant. Now let's look at different uses that we also have. Ga is used in situations of things of desire, like things that we love, like, or want, and in kind of addition to that, things that we don't like. So for example, we have certain grammars in Japanese language tabetai desu, which means I want to eat. And in this case, you say ramen ga tabetai desu. Because, well, ga indicates what you desire, what you want to eat. And in this case, you want to eat ramen. You don't want to eat kimchi, you don't want to eat sushi, you want to eat ramen. So here again, you point out what you want to eat. Another thing that is similar to the grammar with tai, you have umeboshi ga hoshii desu. Well, umeboshi are just these small plums, and hoshii desu means you wish for, you want. So you want this plum. Again, you want this one, not another one. You don't want an apple, you don't want a banana, and so on. And then, kanojo ga suki desu. In this case, you say you like her. As we had the girl in the beginning, if you tell your crush, 今日は特に綺麗です and you say, あなたが好きです I like you. Then you want to say you like her. You don't like other people, you like her. If we go back to the example from before with wa, you can also say 彼女は好きです and this again would indicate a contrast. Well, you like her, but the other ones you don't like. But usually when you say that you like someone, you use ga to emphasize on it's about you. It's not about other persons, it's about you. And here you also see the difference between wa as a contrast, where you look at A and B, and ga as pointing out something as looking at A and forgetting about B. And there you can have it also in the opposite version as of 彼が嫌いです. So you say you hate this person, not another person, this person. And while we talk about desires, let's talk about ongoing states, because that is also something where you can use ga. One state that is ongoing could be 私がわかります. If you talk to your teacher and your teacher tells you, did you understand it? You can say, 私がわかります. So basically, after you watch my video, you understand how to use wa and ga. And this is an ongoing state, right? If you understand how to use it, you will not suddenly not know how to use it or know how to use it. If you understand something, it is a state of understanding. So in this case, you use the ga particle. Then you have other states that can be ongoing, right? For example, 梅雨が続いています. And well, this is an ongoing state, right? It's not just that it rains and stops and rains and stops. Well, it rains consistently. So in this case, you can use the ga particle too, or well, you have to use the ga particle. And another example would be, for example, 彼が座っています. We don't talk about grammar that much here, but you can just remember 座っています is itself the state of sitting. It means that you right now are sitting, or something right now is sitting. So we need to mark, and well, it's not just about states, it's also about being able to do something. So, well, do you know that one guy that is really good playing football? Well, if you want to say that he's good at football, you can say サッカーができます. In this case, it will be just omitted. So, サッカーができます. If we already know that we talk about the topic of that person from before, like I showed you before, you have the information that we talk about this person, you can just say サッカーができます. できます just means be able to do something, and in this case, the person is able to do saka. Here, in the next example, we have 日本語が話せます. You can change the form of some verbs. In this case, 話せます means being able to speak. And after you watch my videos, you can say 日本語が話せます. You're able to speak Japanese. And this is the similar ability. Whether you're able to play football, learn Japanese, well, this is part of noryoku. And well, I know this is much information to process right now, but keep in mind, every smaller example that I give to you right now all come together in the basic thinking about ga. Like I told you before, you focus on A and you forget about B. If you want to eat a certain thing, you want to eat this thing and you forget about everything else. If you're able to do something, then you're able to do this thing, not other things. You're good at this one. So let's go to another one, shiteki. And well, I just called it shiteki as pointing out certain topics, things, or persons. As I told you before with the example of ga, 誰が笑いました? If you remember it, well, you can use it in other forms as 誰が来ましたか? Who came to here, to our place? Or well, if you're talking with another person and they give their opinion about something, then you can say, それが違うです. Well, what you just said, I kind of feel that it's different. Well, in Japanese language, you will usually not say your opinion that directly, but if you have someone that you're closer with or a closer friend, then this can be used too. And now we come to the last part, how ga, the particle itself, can be used. Well, in this case, it will be used for relative clauses. And a relative clause is attached to an antecedent by relative pronouns such as who, which, or that. Well, when reading those definitions inside the internet, whether it is relative clauses or the Joshi that we had before, it usually makes things way more complicated than they are. So let's look at relative clauses, or as in Japanese language we call attributive clauses. They're basically the same. So imagine a sentence that is kuni desu, and you can imagine relative sentences like the first one. Nihongo ga hanasu kuni desu. So you see that the Nihongo ga hanasu is further telling you about kuni desu. It is a relative clause, so it assists in explaining more about kuni desu. Well, you can just say it adds additional information to our sentence kuni desu. And basically, every noun that we have in front of the verb or the adjective will be indicated with ga, always if it's in a relative clause. Another thing would be gohan ga oishii kuni desu, a country in which the rice is tasty. Or 素敵な女性がいる国です. Well, a country in which good-looking women are. So let's look at this definition again with the background knowledge I just gave you about the particles wa and ga as an example. So joshi are small grammatical markers, as we had before as wa and ga, that follow nouns, verbs, or other words. So for example, if we think back about other things, we have 日本語が話せます. You have a noun which is followed by a particle as ga, as we had in case with noun. And well, they indicate their grammatical function. And the grammatical function is basically what I just explained to you, indicating the topic, indicating the subject, indicating things you want, you desire, and so on and so forth, within a sentence. And now let's look at the follow part, because that is something that I think that many students get wrong, that I got wrong for some time, and that I also think some teachers don't really understand that good. So usually we think about a particle following a word, but let's look at this sentence here first, and I will explain you why I hate the word follow for particles. In this case, you learned about the particle wa. Victor, in this case, is just my name, Victor. So it's about me, Victor. Camera de, well, we didn't talk about de, but camera you can kind of think about if you think what camera could mean in English. Camera, camera, so in this case camera. De, in this case it's a tool. So Victor had a tool, camera, and then Hongo no video o torimashita. Well, we will not talk too much about those particles for now, but basically the last part means Nihongo no video, so a video about Japanese language, and then o torimashita, took. So no is indicating the possession, so a video of Japanese or a video about Japanese, and o is just marking the object. So what is getting taken? What is the object that is getting taken? Nihongo no video. For now, just remember the meaning of those words. And if you look at the particles, and if we have the mindset of following something, well, we will say, okay, vector, topic, camera, tool, Nihongo no video, well, Japanese of, the video of Japanese. Well, with the no particle, you already see that following doesn't make sense, because Nihongo no video kind of merges two vocabularies together. But this is a topic for another video. And then we still have video o, well, the object of a video. And well, when I look at the sentence, it already gets really confusing for me. And I think you're confused right now too. Now, let me clear up that mess. Basically the number one rule that I talked about in the beginning. basically the number one thing that I want you to really remember every time you learn Japanese, and it is the most basic fundamental rule of Japanese language that you can use for everything that you will learn afterwards. So a person that just started learning or a person that learns for 3 years, this rule will be important for you. So let's look at one principle of my workbook, the basic fundamentals of Japanese language. And in this workbook I explained the most basic principle, the train principle. And let me give you a brief overview about what I mean with the train principle. But first let's talk about a train itself. So a train has the front, where the engine is inside, which carries the train. If you have a train, then you need this engine part, because the train will not move without this engine, right? And then you can connect to this engine some wagons, right? You can connect 1 or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20, it's up to you. But you need them to be connected, right? You cannot just put the wagon behind the engine, because then it will not move. You need to connect them so they stick together, and you need to connect them good so the train can keep carrying this wagon. And basically this is how Japanese language works, how every single sentence in Japanese language works. So let's look at this Japanese sentence. And I basically marked the colors of the sentence with the colors of the train. But you can see it is kind of upside down. And this is the first confusion point that you will have, because you will think, why is the main part of the Japanese sentence, in this case, why is the engine torimashita? And you see the first wagon that we connect is video, the second wagon that we connect is Nihongo, and then, well, I didn't put it in the train example, but the next wagon that would come would be camera, and then there would be bigta. So if you think about Japanese sentences, please think from them as the back is the most important thing. Well, in European languages and general in the American language too, we tend to put the most important information in the front. Usually it's in the main clause. But in Japanese sentences, the most important information is always at the back. And the more you go to the front, the less important it becomes. So if you say in Japanese, torimashita, it is a perfectly fine sentence. Because, like I told you before, if we at least have the engine, the sentence makes sense. So you can build sentences just with verbs. For example, if you're together with your friends and one person tells you, hikoki no shashin totte, which translates as, well, take a picture of the plane, please. And then you can say, torimashita. And this will be a perfect, grammatical correct Japanese sentence. And it can move on its own. And everything what we add after this is bonus information. Let's take one wagon to this sentence. We have bidio torimashita. But in this case, bidio torimashita, well, isn't really connecting the wagon with the engine. So the connector between those two, those are particles. And that's why I don't think about following. When I think about particles, I think of them connecting the engine with a wagon, or connecting another wagon with another wagon. So in this case, if I want to give the listener more information, for example, I'm talking to a friend about that I took a video, I can tell him, well, video torimashita, I took a video. I can also say torimashita, and he will be like, nani o torimashita? As I'm asking, what did you take? And then I can say, video torimashita. And well, then we can add another wagon. So for example, we want to say specifically which video did we take. And you see, by connecting the first and the second wagon, we have Nihongo no video. And if we translate this, well, no is as a possession. So you say Nihongo no video, Hongo no video, it's kind of belonging to Japanese, so a Japanese video. And maybe we want to say how we took this video. So we add another third wagon and we say camera de. So this is, we need to connect our next wagon with de, and we say camera. Well, we took the video with a camera. And then if we look at the first thing is, well, usually, and that's what I told you, wa, in case of a topic marker, will be often omitted in sentences. So when I say the sentence, camera de Nihongo no video o torimashita, then this is a perfectly fine sentence saying, I took a Japanese video with my camera. And Usually when you have sentences with wa, the wa will be always at the beginning. And in our thinking we would say, okay, the topic of the sentence in this case is the most important, right? But it is the most farthest away from the engine. So actually in Japanese sentences, the reason why you often omit the topic, it's not that important. Because the closer it is to the engine, the more important it gets. And if it's the engine, it's not something that you can just omit. So that's how you need to think about Japanese sentences. You shouldn't think about Japanese sentences at some word and then something following, another word and then something following. No, it's a train. It's a train with an engine that builds the base of the sentence, connected through connectors, in this case particles, and you're adding other wagons, each connected by particles to build a full sentence. And the farther away you go from the engine, the less important the information gets. If you want to know more about this basic Japanese principle alongside many other fundamentals that build the foundation of Japanese language, take a look at my Basic Principles of Japanese Language workbook.